Hey, David Brewster here with another 3 for All, and this is 3 Chuck Schuldiner Licks from 1998. And of course, we're going to be talking about the band Death. And Death formed in Florida in 1984 and helped kind of pioneer death metal in the mid 80s, along with bands like Possessed. Their album Seven Churches came out. What was that, 1985, I think, when that came out? And a lot of people point to that one as the first, death metal album. But to my ears, and in my, opinion, I think Scream Bloody Gore from 1987, Death's, debut album, I think that is actually the kind of christening moment or whatever of death metal, because it was the complete package, almost like Black Sabbath that we talked about, this month during Metal Month. Sabbath definitely just nailed, heavy metal. And there were groups before Black Sabbath that were kind of toying with some of those sounds and lyrics and things like that. But Sabbath was the complete picture, just like Death was the complete picture of death metal. Now Chuck is still very respected, he has a huge fan base and following that still just worship, their music and his, guitar playing and everything. And definitely the band Death had a lot of lineup changes, and a lot of talent, kind of came and went through the group. Drummers and bassists, but also other guitar players too. Andy LaRocque, from King Diamond, James Murphy, Paul Mostoval, from Cynic and some of those bands. And it's really interesting to kind of notice, that they started as just a full-on death metal band. And then, as you kind of creeped into the 90s and in the late 90s, Death kind of turned into a prog metal band. And I think Chuck got into groups like Dream Theater and Symphony X and some of that stuff. And it pulled him away from death metal. And he was kind of getting jazzier and kind of prog, near the end, which is so inspiring and cool to see an artist or a musician grow. And here we are in Metal Month, for the month of October on Late Night Lessons, and definitely Death's debut album, Scream Bloody Gore, is totally appropriate for this month because there were direct horror movie references in the lyrics and in the songs. And I'm guessing Chuck was a big Italian horror film, fan, because songs like Regurgitated Guts, is kind of loosely inspired by City of the Living Dead. There's like Zombie Ritual was what the film Zombie, and there's a song called Evil Dead. And if you're a fan of Death, I don't know if you were aware or not, because it's been kind of a wacky year, but there were 6 brand new live albums released this year from Relapse Records. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa, no way. I had no idea. But yeah, there are like 6 brand new live albums that just hit the scene, this year. The licks in this lesson came from a live bootleg. I think it was in Chile in 1998. That would have been during the Sound of Perseverance tour. And I think the licks kind of came from A Moment of Clarity and Crystal Mountain and, just different licks that I kind of grabbed from this live footage. All right, the first lick comes from the guitar solo from the song A Moment of Clarity. And it's something like this. It's this really expressive melodic phrase like this. Let me do that one more time. And it's basically based around E Aeolian, the natural minor scale. And it's basically shifting and sliding right into this B note there, the 5th in the key of E. And he's basically, creating this melodic, statement, but it's really interesting. He's sliding into the D and he's targeting that C note like that. Very majestic and has this very, distinct sound. I like that. And then he starts doing this little mutated phrase, which is really cool. So there's, B to G to E. So that's, E minor. And then, so there's B to A to F sharp right there. And then basically come down B, A to G the last time. And then I love the way it ends, where he's grabbing A and B, and then G to F sharp. So he's ending on the 9th, because we're in the key of E. Like that. I bending. I really just like the way that lick is put together. It's very melodic, you know, very expressive, and I'm a big fan of that type of stuff for sure. But here's the clip from '98 with Chuck playing that. The next lick also comes from A Moment of Clarity, and it's this open string tapping lick, and he's kind of double tapping, which reminds me of Randy Rhoads, you know, from the Crazy Train solo. But it looks and sounds like this. One more time. There you can see we're on the B string. We're basically holding down, you know, E and G, and also incorporating the open B string, and then tapping along, you know, the notes B, C, and D here. And he's kind of doing this little rhythmic, you know, sequence like this. And then move to C. And there's the D right there. And then return to B. Really cool lick, and I love, you know, sequences and tapped, you know, ideas like that. And it does remind me of Crazy Train, but it's in a different key, and we're using the open string too, so it is different. But I love, you know, those kind of rhythmic and you know, varying, you know, tapping ideas like that. Really cool lick. The next lick comes from the solo from the song Crystal Mountain, and it's the same tour in '98, but it's actually a different concert. I think it's actually in New York instead of Chile. But it's this kind of frantic pull-off lick, and there's some bending in there. And once again, it reminds me of Randy Rhoads a little bit, and also reminds me of Jimmy Page. And it sounds like this. One more time. And there you can see we're much higher on the fretboard, and we're bending this 19th fret on the B to kind of make our way over to the high E string right there. So the first part is this. And that's the Jimmy Page kind of Randy Rhoads, you know, pull-off lick right there. But then he's actually kind of changed it, modified it a little bit, which is cool, because he does that the first time. And then he basically only hits the 18th fret, comes back down, goes back up, and then he's hitting that 19 at the end and bending it. So really slowly it's like this. But here's the footage from '98, and I believe it's in New York this time. Okay, here's a bonus lick, and this is back at the Chili concert and the Moment of Clarity solo, and there's this crazy run, like a shred run that he does in that song. And I think this live footage, he actually did like a different lick. This is this blurry, really aggressive unison run. It's a speed lick, and he's just kind of looping it over and over like this. I'm also using my neck pickup there. It has this real kind of blurry, you know, bassy sound. But you can see if we go really slow, you can see the unison's actually happening right there near the beginning with that B note, because we're starting on C, and you're grabbing that B on the B string, and then also grabbing B right there on the 16th fret on the G. And this is based in E Aeolian, once again. interesting lick, and I love those blurry kind of speed licks like that, where I mean, it's just kind of looped and repeated over and over. But that sounds terrifying, you know, like when you hear somebody play something like that, it's like, whoa, because it just sounds really cool. And you can see there, after that unison, you're basically coming down this whole step pattern on the G, do the same thing on the D, and then you've got this kind of half step, whole step on the A. And you want to go down and back up right there. And then go right back up, that 12, 14, and 16 again. And that D, E, and F sharp, and then this G, A, and B right there. And then you start the whole thing over. That's going to wrap this look at 3 Chuck Schuldiner licks from 1998. I'm definitely a fan, and I respect, you know, all musicians, whether they're bluegrass or death metal or, you know, funk or whatever they play. If it's good music, I like it. You know, it doesn't matter where it came from or who it is or whatever. But as soon as I kind of noticed, you know, his music, and definitely I heard some of the early stuff when I was younger, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is death metal, you know, and I thought it was scary back then. And I guess for some people it is scary. I think my senses have just been kind of destroyed over the years of listening to metal and watching horror movies or whatever and reading Stephen King. So definitely I've been desensitized, and it takes a lot to shock me these days. You know, when I was like a 12-year-old kid, when I heard scream, bloody gore and some of this stuff, I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? You know, I'm going to get in trouble or, you know, or whatever. And now, obviously, I'm an adult. So, you know, I don't really look at things the same way. I dig into, you know, metal and death metal and all kinds of stuff because of the music and the guitarists and everything too. But I listen to metal, you know, sometimes for the drummer. Sometimes it's not the guitarist. You know, I'm also a big drummer fan or drum fan. So sometimes I'll get pulled into a metal group because of the drummer or the singer or whatever. But, you know, 90% of the time, it's usually the guitarist that I'm kind of listening to or checking out. But I do kind of venture out, you know, and listen to other stuff too. But there's a lot you can learn from Chuck because he's definitely, you know, he hasn't been forgotten. I mean, there's still a lot of people that have held on to his music and his legacy, and they've paid tributes to him. You know, Relapse Records just released 6 brand new, you know, live albums. So even though he passed away like 19 years ago, it is really inspiring and good to see that people still remember Chuck and his music. They still remember death. And I don't know, it's really inspiring to think, wow, his music is still, you know, revered and listened to and suggested, you know, with metal fans all over the world. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.